look at that. How cool would it be to live on a canal, right? There are some challenges that come with living next to the water. Don't get me wrong. But if this is the type of lifestyle you're looking for, look no further. You can find that right here in the city of Detroit. You literally have the ability to dock your boat in your backyard. That is insane. Imagine buying a waterfront home here in the city of Detroit. Yes, Detroit. There's literally a neighborhood where you can keep a boat in your backyard, cruise through miles of canals, and head straight out to the Detroit River. Now, imagine the city telling you, hey, look, we may need to close these canals, not because we don't like boats, right? But because we believe one of the best ways to stop catastrophic flooding, which is something that this neighborhood has seen in the past, is to close what you guys love best about the neighborhood. What would you choose? Try to protect one of Detroit's most unique neighborhoods, or fundamentally change it in the name of climate resilience? Today, we're talking about a proposed $20 million federally funded flood mitigation project that's dividing one of Detroit's most historic waterfront communities. And at first glance, this might sound like a debate over a few canals, but trust me, it's much, much bigger than that. This story is about infrastructure, climate adaptation, engineering, property values, neighborhood identity, and one of the toughest questions cities across America are going to face over the next several decades. But first, let me give you some background on the neighborhood that we're referring to, Jefferson Chalmers. And this is a neighborhood unlike almost anywhere else in the country, right? Jefferson Chalmers, if you've never heard of or never been to Jefferson Chalmers, you might be wondering, hey, look, why is everybody so upset about a few canals? Well, Jefferson Chalmers is not just another Detroit neighborhood. It's one of the city's oldest waterfront communities with roots dating back more than a century. Long before Detroit became known around the world for automobiles, this part of the city was shaped by the Detroit River, shipping, fishing, boating, and waterfront living. In the early 1900s, developers transformed marshland into residential neighborhoods by digging miles and miles of canals, creating something incredibly rare in the Midwest, a place where homeowners could literally dock a boat in their own backyard. Today, Jefferson Chalmers contains roughly 10 miles of canals within a neighborhood that's only about a square mile in size, earning it the nickname Detroit's Venice. These aren't decorative waterways. They're connected directly to the Detroit River, meaning residents can leave their backyard dock and boat all the way to Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, and throughout the Great Lakes, right? That waterfront lifestyle has defined this neighborhood for generations. It's why you'll find marinas, bait shops, yacht clubs, boat repair businesses, waterfront restaurants, and homes that simply don't exist anywhere else in the city of Detroit. Now, like most of the city, Jefferson Chalmers experienced decades of population loss and disinvestment. But unlike many neighborhoods, it never lost what made it special. In recent years, we've seen historic homes restored, new residents move in from all over the country and world, public investments in parks and riverfront spaces, and renewed interest in one of Detroit's most unique communities. But there's another side to living on the water: aging infrastructure, right? Stronger storms, higher water levels, combined sewer overflows, repeated flooding, basement backups, rising insurance costs, and FEMA floodplain maps that have become a major concern for homeowners. So this isn't simply a fight over canals that we're talking about today. It's a debate over whether you can preserve the character that made a neighborhood worth investing in while adapting it to a future where flooding may become even more common. And honestly, that's a conversation happening in waterfront communities all across America.
More than 200 people took to the water this weekend in Jefferson Chalmers in a protest against a revived plan to close off canals in their neighborhood. City officials say that it could reduce flooding, an issue that we've seen time and again in that neighborhood. But residents argue that it would destroy their way of life and hurt property values. 7 News Detroit reporter Randy Wimbley is your Detroit reporter. He learned of this story while out talking with people in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood. Randy's back out there tonight talking with residents and showing us what's at stake.
Blake Grantham Wesson says her neighborhood would suffer if city officials move forward with the plan that would close off canals in Jefferson Chalmers using a $20 million federal grant.
Having sitting water in the canal raises so many issues. Plus, it's going to drop property value down.
The move is designed to address severe flooding and remove the area's floodplain designation.
Now, $20 million, right? When you hear that, you're like, okay, we can do some things with that, right? But it's also important to note that federal grants rarely come with unlimited flexibility. Many infrastructure grants are awarded for specific resilience objectives, meaning the city may not simply be allowed to spend that money however residents prefer. Federal resilience funding usually prioritizes measurable outcomes: flood reduction, risk reduction, insurance savings, climate adaptation, not necessarily preserving neighborhood character. Sometimes those goals align, sometimes they don't. Now, I don't automatically blame the city here. Everybody online loves saying government is stupid. Well, sometimes, or maybe they're working inside a grant program that gives them fewer options than most people realize.
I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's going to help anything.
Residents like Frank Rains and Jay Jurgensen say it would not fix the problem.
Even if stop logs and flood walls are put in place, they'll only be put in a few places. The entire community is at risk. The second problem is that we actually experience as much flooding from the combined sewage overflow at the headwaters of Fox Creek. So the three communities, Grosse Pointe Park, Grosse Pointe City, and Grosse Pointe Farms, immediately to our east, in heavy rains, their sewage is discharged into our backyards. And so we will see as much as a 3-foot rise in 30 minutes.
Now let's talk combined sewer overflow, or CSO, which is a pretty old infrastructure system, right? Many older cities, including Detroit, have sewer pipes carrying stormwater and sewage through the same pipes. And so when we get heavy rain, the system exceeds capacity. That water has to go somewhere. Sometimes into rivers, sometimes into neighborhoods. Detroit's combined sewer system dates back decades, right? Many Great Lakes cities have similar infrastructure: Chicago, Cleveland, Buffalo, Milwaukee, St. Louis. Billions have been spent trying to modernize these systems. Many still aren't finished. Now, if these residents are correct, which I've had an opportunity to have conversations with folks that live in Jefferson Chalmers, and I actually believe that they're onto something. If much of the flooding is actually coming from combined sewer overflow, then closing canals alone may never solve the root problem. That's a huge engineering distinction. Now, when people hear floodplain, they think it's just a map. No. Floodplain designations affect everything: insurance premiums, mortgage requirements, lending availability, future development, property values, construction costs, renovation requirements, sometimes thousands of dollars annually per homeowner. Now, if removing the floodplain saves homeowners thousands every year, that's real money. But here's the trade-off: if eliminating the floodplain also destroys waterfront access, did you really increase value, right? Or just shift where value comes from? That's the million-dollar question.
Intense flooding in recent years prompted FEMA to redraw its flood map for the neighborhood. The city dropped the canal closure plan back in 2022 after residents pushed back. But now it's back on the table.
With regard to the FEMA flood maps being adjusted, this happens more than people realize. Climate data changes, rainfall changes, water levels change. FEMA then updates the maps, and then suddenly your insurance doubles, maybe even triples. Communities across America are discovering they were built for weather patterns that no longer exist. The infrastructure wasn't designed for today's storms. That isn't just Detroit, that's nationwide. I want you to think about something. We're entering into an era where resilience may become more valuable than location.
People make money down here. Their jobs are on the water. We have boat rentals, we have a restaurant, we have bait shops. All that is gone.
It'd be like a marshy muck. I'll come right out and tell you, I did not move over here just for the scenery, I moved here for the canal.
Now, it's important to note that waterfront isn't just scenery, right? It's economic infrastructure: boat repair, marinas, restaurants, fishing, tourism, kayaking, home values, lifestyle. As a developer, we spend enormous amounts of money trying to create unique places, right? Jefferson Chalmers already has one. Why would you erase one of Detroit's rare competitive advantages?
Well, people living here tell me there's another option, and that's to harden or improve the shorelines along the canal.
Our neighborhood is only about 1.25 miles square, but we have 10 miles of shoreline. And all of those elements of the shoreline need to be brought to a particular height and hardened in order to remove us from the floodplain. But we believe that that's in the best interest of the neighborhood. It's the best environmental solution. It's also the least expensive.
So they can get that done with that $20 million.
We believe they can.
Now, this is where I'd love to see an independent engineering analysis shared with the community. Residents are suggesting, hey, look, let's raise the shoreline elevations, harden the seawalls, improve the bulkheads, instead of actually closing these beautiful canals. Now, with that said, shoreline hardening means seawalls, riprap, sheet piling, bulkheads, flood barriers. These are really, really expensive, but sometimes they preserve neighborhood character. But it's important to point out that just because residents are proposing an alternative doesn't automatically mean it's feasible. Likewise, just because government proposes something doesn't automatically make it best. That's why engineering studies matter.
The city of Detroit says it knows many oppose any canal closure, permanent or temporary, and hopes mitigation options can be found that solve flooding without closing canals. Residents are urging the city to do whatever it takes to save them.
And we have all voted and hired you in to come up with a more creative idea that doesn't hurt our neighborhood.
In Jefferson Chalmers, Randy Wembley, 7 News Detroit.
Now, it's good that the city is still looking through alternatives, right? That's actually very encouraging. Infrastructure planning should never be government versus residents. It should be collaborative. The best projects usually happen after multiple redesigns. I've seen projects improve dramatically after community meetings. Sometimes residents identify problems architects completely missed. Sometimes engineers explain constraints nobody understood. At the end of the day, both sides make projects better. So what I would like to do is check out the current listings in Jeff Chalmers to help you understand just how many opportunities of home ownership there are in the city of Detroit. On top of the opportunities of home ownership, the types of properties that you have available to you in these beautiful neighborhoods, especially in Jeff Chalmers. Let's check it out. Here's a 1,500 square foot property, $200,000, 3-bed, 2.5 bathroom property. And you can see here, it is a pretty good property, right? Decent shape. Looks like everything is in operational order. The basement is nice and dry, and I'm going to assume that it has a furnace and a hot water tank. They're just not showing it in this image. But for the most part, right, $200,000 for a beautiful brick home here in the city of Detroit. Let's check out another one. This property is for $270,000. Let's check out the images here. Beautiful color brick. There are some bricks that look similar to this that come from Traverse City. At one point, there was a brick production facility out in Traverse City, and they used to produce bricks of this color. So I'm intrigued by wondering if those bricks came from that area of Michigan. But this property looks good. Wood floors, solid wood doors, bathroom looks complete. That doesn't look like it's an AI picture, right? I think that's the real bathroom. But has a kitchen, looks like it's move-in ready, right? You got a fireplace. This property looks like it's in good shape. Here's a property right on the canal, $280,000, 1,500 square feet, closer to 1,600, 4-bed, 2-bath, 280,000, right? Bird's eye view. Man, look at that. How cool would it be to live on a canal, right? There are some challenges that come with living next to the water. Don't get me wrong. But if this is the type of lifestyle you're looking for, look no further. You can find that right here in the city of Detroit. You literally have the ability to dock your boat in your backyard. That is insane. That's a lot of wood that you'd want to make sure you treat on a consistent basis when you're living next to the water. But for the most part, you just have to know how to manage your property based off of, what you're living next to. And here's one more bird's eye view of the house. Man, just look at your neighbors, right? Look at the ability to live on a canal, right? Can you imagine it? And there are a lot of people who buy property up north to have this type of lifestyle. People don't even realize that you have that ability to do just that here in the city of Detroit, which is pretty cool in my eyes. Now, I actually think that both sides are trying to solve the same problem here. Nobody wants flooding. Nobody wants neighborhoods destroyed. Nobody wants property values to fall. The disagreement is over how to get there. And honestly, that's where some of the most important urban planning conversations happen. They're messy, they're expensive, they're emotional, but they're necessary. But I would love to hear from you, especially if you live or have lived in Jefferson Chalmers. Would you support closing portions of the canals if it meant dramatically reducing flooding, or would you preserve the canals and invest in more expensive shoreline improvements instead? Let me know in the comment section below, and really appreciative of you chiming in, listening to me ramble, and I'll see you in the next video.